associate to director in under 5 years at PNC, which is obviously a $75 billion market cap bank, and even had a brief stop in the Cordon Bleu kitchen.
I was at PNC my whole career, and so there were a lot of changes at once. So I was an athlete in university, and I always followed like a very structured regimen, I felt like.
Is it still the golden age of private credit?
Oh, okay.
But do you have any like high-level sort of advice or framework for people who are balancing that sort of settling for plan B, be going all in on plan A?
And I was like, I really like to cook. Nothing feels more important than like getting that dish. But at the end of the day, it's a plate of food. I think finance is the same way, where like you'll be on the brink of closing a deal and you're like freaking out and like everything is on fire. I think that translates, you're gonna take some L's and you gotta move on.
How are you managing all these things?
Yeah, it's like checking your ego at the door. It's like you're not gonna be the number one person on the team day one.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 17 of the Mergers podcast. It's the first one of the new year. We wish you well. We hope you have a very successful year. With me, it's the man that's seen more useless pitch decks than a WeWork janitor. Ken, how are we doing?
Doing good. New year, same us, new guests. So it's great.
Yeah, it's good. Same vibe. And Gaz is ever behind the camera doing God's work. Hello. Anyway, let's introduce Laila. Laila joins us from Validus Risk Management. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Laila, for our viewers, I think just give them a bit of an overview. But as I understand it, you're now at Validus Risk Management, which under 100 employees, but facilitated over $500 billion in trades. So I think it'd be really good to learn more about sort of what you do there and what brought you to the UK. Mm-hmm. But then also touch on the facts of your prior journey. So you were associate to director in under 5 years at PNC, which is obviously a $75 billion market cap bank, and even had a brief stop in the Cordon Bleu kitchen, which is an amazing sort of career break somehow to thrive there. So should we start with your current role before going back to your sort of like American roots and what sort of brought you over the pond?
Yeah, my American roots, I like that. Yeah, I'm at Validus Risk Management, and I'm in our fund finance advisory group. Coming from a bank, I think you learned a lot about, the lending side, the borrowing side, and kind of being able to combine the two in an advisory role was really attractive to me. It's been a really great transition. I think going to a smaller firm too, you kind of have to figure it out as you go sometimes. You don't always have, ample resources in terms of people or, previous history. And so coming to a firm where you're building and you're part of the growth from the very beginning was enticing. And it's been a great journey so far. I've been at Validus for 6 months now, but I've learned so much in such a short period of time, and wouldn't have changed anything. It hasn't always been easy, as you can imagine. Coming from the States, coming to a new country, joining a new company, joining a smaller company, finding my own sense of community outside of work. So it's definitely been an adjustment, but I've really enjoyed the journey, and looking forward to what's next.
Yeah, and still in that sort of sales role. Sort of similar advisory, like are you winning relationships and bringing them to Validus and then managing them, or are you just managing existing relationships?
Yeah, it's a little bit different than what I was doing before. I think before was very business development heavy. You're obviously doing a lot of relationship management. It's obviously very technical while you're working at a bank and there's a lot of analysis, but I think with what I'm doing in an advisory role, it's obviously there's still the client management piece, but a lot of it is you're doing, soup to nuts, as opposed to having a group of analysts per se who are doing a lot of the analysis. It's kind of you doing everything. It's still a lot of business development. I'm on a business development team, but in terms of getting into the structuring and getting into the weeds, into what these managers are really looking for their fund financing, I've definitely, got a lot more intimately close with our clients, it's just been a really good change for me, I think.
I think it's the first time I've ever heard soup to nuts
really?
in the conversation.
People always say, what is it, cradle to grave?
Yeah.
And that's so grim to me.
But what does soup to nuts mean?
It's like in construction. Soup to nuts. Stop. I
thought it was a cooking thing.
No, it's stop. Someone soup to nuts, beginning to end. Someone help me out here.
Sorry.
Wait, how do you get nuts from soup?
Nuts and bolts. Why?
But where does soup come into construction?
Is it not construction? Is it food? Did I make this up? It's not construction.
I hate to tell you, and this is quite embarrassing, given we're going to go on to your cooking career. But a description of a full course dinner, as in soup to start and then nuts to end.
No, that's so
Like a
bad.
glazed
Nibbles.
pecan.
That's so bad.
Like a
What?
glazed pecan, like soup to nuts. You
Yeah,
start
like
with like a dessert.
That's so bad.
Sorry, just
Okay, but it's a real saying.
listeners, I swear to God, she is actually incredibly successsul and intelligent.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
how did you think soup was in construction?
I don't know. That has to
Nuts and bolts,
that
baby.
has to be cut out.
Yeah,
I've got the hammer, I've got the nuts, I've got the concrete. Anyone got the soup?
for lunch.
Someone has to eat. Okay.
For like our viewers who don't know what fund advisory is, it might be really helpful to have like a very plain English breakdown. So even what even is a fund, and then what advisory services would they need?
Okay, so with the fund, you are looking for a pool of capital to invest in whatever assets. So PE could be in companies, private credit, you're lending to borrowers. And where we come in is, in order to facilitate these investments, there has to be some finance, not has to be, but a lot of times there's some financing into play. And when you have some, we work with smaller managers, larger managers, but where we find our niche is kind of those bespoke niche deals that, lenders may not be very excited for or don't have a lot of history for. We come in and we help with the structuring. We help source different, lenders in order to, facilitate these transactions. Validus Risk Management was started as more of a hedging firm. They, specialize in the foreign exchange realm more. And they migrated over to IR, and then eventually in the past 4 or 5
IR being
interest rate hedging.
I thought investor relations was fair.
Oh, sorry.
Enough.
Sorry. Yeah, interest rate hedging. And then, more recently, the firm's only been around for about 15 years, but more recently have migrated over to fund finance advisory. And that's where, my team comes in. But it's been a very seamless transition, moving, including foreign exchange hedging and over to fund finance, just considering we're calling on the same managers, private credit managers, private capital managers. Yeah.
So just to sort of check my own understanding. So VC firms, PE firms, that take pools of capital from, the rich individuals or pension funds, maybe especially if they haven't got a great track record or are new, so they can't do it in-house. They'll come to you and originally that was for, like you say, FX hedging, but more so now that's just is that helping them on the back end or helping them with like raising funds? Is it helping them to maybe like, report with their reporting, or I think you do something around like capital calls and stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of serve as like an intermediary between the borrower and the lender. So for example, one facility that we, work very closely on is capital call lines. Which is extremely popular right now for a lot of private capital funds. So while, funds are raising capital and they're making investments, they'll have this capital call line where they're able to, they're able to finance their investments in real time. So as opposed to waiting to call capital from investors, they'll draw on this line, which serves to bridge the investment. So that's where we kind of come in. We also do NAV facilities, so lending against the existing assets of the fund. That's kind of our bread and butter.
Yeah, in the VC space, it's fairly common, especially with the big boys. Like they're just underwriting all this because it helps their IRR. Because the less time you have sitting with this capital in your accounts, the better your IRR is, and they'll just take the spread on whatever the interest is on their debt.
So, but then how long are you borrowing that capital for? Because surely, again, so for those that don't know, the way it normally works, I commit £1 million to Ken's VC firm. And then he emails me being like, we want to investment. Can you wire your 40,000 in the next month, week, whatever, right?
Yeah, because I guess it depends. Like you tell us, right?
Yeah. So like for capital call line, typically we'll see about 1 year for a facility. For a NAV facility, you might see like 3 to 5 years. So it definitely depends on the structure of the facility, depends on the needs, it depends on where you are in your fund life. So yeah, it can definitely vary. That's where we kind of come in too, because there could be a very standard, vanilla deals that you'll see a lot of these large banks will do. But sometimes when I have a fund where they're, drew on most of their capital, they need some, to put more capital into their assets. They need some help figuring out, maybe they do a hybrid facility where it's a capital call line and a NAV facility. Maybe they're just looking at a NAV. Maybe it's an asset-backed leverage facility. So it can vary, and that's where we specialize. Okay,
so is that sort of in the case that they want to reinvest some capital into the businesses
at
roughly the same time that they've found another investment? Maybe they want to allocate slightly more capital than they raised.
Yeah.
And so they'd sort of come to you for external capital.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're looking to, all those things. If they're, maybe a fund's not, an asset's not doing too well, they can, put more capital into the asset. Even, management fee. There's so many different, needs that we can help to finance. So, yeah.
In your opinion, your personal opinion, not the Validus opinion, maybe, are you looking at like credit funds, and is it still the golden age of private credit?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think they're here to stay. I mean, we've been seeing them continue to do well. I think banks are still in a position where they're, not able to use their balance sheet to the way they were before, and the of the world kind of, bellied up for lack of a better
we could call it how it is.
Yeah.
I like the way you were so hesitant to say bellied up after it literally went belly up.
But yeah. So I think private credit's, here to stay. I think it's going to continue to do well. I think there's a need in the market, and people are going to continue to, leverage that.
So private credit, by my understanding, obviously, traditionally banks do lending, right? You deposit your money at a bank, they go out and lend it. With the introduction of, is it Basel IV that's coming?
Yeah.
So banks are now going to be forced to hold more and more government debt. So they want to increase their conservative capital rate, whatever. I can't remember the name for it at the moment. But they're basically going to have to buy more government debt. So private credit has seen this rise as rates have gone up, where, private equity firms, private credit firms are now filling that gap. So lending where in a sort of riskier space where banks don't. Is that a sort of roughly fair breakdown of private credit?
Yeah, I would say, I think just middle market borrowers in general. I mean, yeah, like you definitely see more risky credits, but I think there's also that gap where, there's just a white space in the market where I think private credit firms will continue to fill. So, but yeah, I would agree with that assessment.
I suppose part of the rise on that is just the rise of interest rates, right? So now these funds are generating sort of double-digit returns, and it's in theory less risky than private equity.
Yeah, I think banks are becoming a little bit more adverse. I think it's a culmination of a lot of things. I think borrowers are also saying that, you can get funkier structures when it comes to private credit firms. And so they're saying that, yeah, you might get, cheaper credit from a bank and you might have a relationship there, but you can also go to a private credit fund and you don't have to give as much ancillary business. I won't say any at all, but you can just, you'll have the facility. You don't necessarily have to worry about other parts of the wallet. So it's beneficiary on a lot of different fronts.
Back to you.
My favorite topic.
You'd mentioned kind of coming here, right? Coming to the UK from the States, bit of a different working environment, right? What was it? I've never really seen a kind of a cultural shock in that sense, but like, has it been so for you? And if so, like, what did that look like outside of like, obviously, PNC to Validus is a different scale of business, but
yeah,
what's it been like for your experience?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I speak English, so that part was fine when coming over. No, I think in some ways I acclimated really quickly, and sometimes it's hard to tell if the things that felt like an adjustment was because I'm in a new country or I'm in a smaller company, and I was at PNC my whole career, and so there were a lot of changes at once. So sometimes it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it's kind of making me feel like a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. But I think overall it was a seamless move. I think coming to a smaller company was very helpful also, just because it's, I don't know, there's like a more like communal like teamwork aspect for the whole entire company as opposed to just like your specific team, which is kind of how it is at a lot of big firms. And so I think from that perspective it was really helpful. Some things that were tough, I think just like the pleasantries were different, which was just different. Like I feel like Americans are very direct, I found. I don't know. And then I think
you would have had to learn like a whole new language. Really,
I mean,
like pleasantries, mannerisms, the whole soup to nuts.
The whole construction soup to nuts. Yeah. It was almost like I was at a construction site. It was so different. There were just little things that I feel like I had to pick up on that I didn't realize I may be coming off as like rude or like overt or like almost abrasive sometimes. But like, I think, you learn those things as you go, and hopefully people think I'm relatively pleasant now.
Okay, relatively pleasant.
Relatively.
So the biggest problem is learning the pleasantry lingo.
Yeah, I mean, also my job, but yeah, outside of that.
So I guess from like wearing, because obviously I've worked in the big bank as well. You're very much doing this role, and they have an army of people doing specific tasks, repeated, like no real deviation from that. How have you found, like, I guess, wearing more hats, right? Maybe wearing multiple hats at the same time in terms of trying to get to that end result.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I was like kind of craving. I loved my time at PNC, and I had incredible mentors and an incredible team at each stage of my career. But I was also looking for that kind of entrepreneurial spirit as well, which has been really great. I think there's so much creativity when it's kind of not laid out for you, and not to say that, it's always like that at a bank, but I think there are some things where like it becomes routine, or like you kind of know like how things are going to play out for some things. And going to, a smaller firm where I didn't know anyone, and they're still building out their business, I think it leaves a lot of opportunity for growth and to kind of, show your value, and also a lot of room to be uncomfortable in some cases, which I think is where you grow like individually. And I was kind of looking for that coming from, somewhere where I had been my whole career.
I love that.
Were you a little like scared, I suppose, to
Yeah.
But you rise up the ranks at PNC at meteoric pace, and then you jack it in sort of 2 months into being a director to
Associate director, but thanks.
Associate director, to move country, smaller role, slightly different field. How did you manage that sort of on a more like personal level?
Yeah, I mean, when I left PNC, I didn't know what I was going to do next, or like what my next move was really going to be. I
don't think anyone could have expected what your next move was.
Yeah. Imagine the conversations with my manager being, by the way, I like I said, I've been at PNC for 5 years, really enjoyed my time there, but I kind of like had a moment where I was like, okay, but like, what do I really want to do? I was an athlete in university, and I always followed like a very structured regimen, I felt like, and I never really got to like, I mean, it's a very privileged statement, but I never like studied abroad or like got to take some time to kind of like travel and do different things outside of what was expected for me. And so I kind of like reassessed. I was like, what do I want to do? And I was like, I really like to cook, and I really want to live in a new country for a short period of time. So let me look at different programs and see what I can do. So I applied for the Cordon Bleu, which is a French culinary school. And I looked at their campus in Paris, I looked at their campus in Malaysia, and then ended up in London because I was like, leaving America is a big enough jump, so leaving my career is a big enough jump. Let me go somewhere where they speak English. And and I don't think that answered the question, but that's how I ended up here in London.
Naturally, the home of great food, Britain. Would you not say, Ken?
There's food here for sure. You chose cooking as your entry into another country. Why, of all the things that you assessed, it said cooking is it?
Yeah, well, my days of being an athlete was over, so no one was gonna allow me to be in the Olympics or anything like that. So, no, I wanted to do something that felt like a passion for me. I think like after a long work day, I'd be like, what meal am I still am like that. I'm like, what meal am I gonna make? Like, I'm always looking at recipes. I'm like, I love going out to eat, but like a lot of people do. But I don't know. I feel like when I'm doing something in like at a leisurely time, or things that like excite me, it's food based. So yeah, I thought about it a lot, and I wanted to do something that felt very different than what I had done before. And I just wanted to take time for me. I thought about like backpacking across Europe, or like my mom's side of the family's from Ghana. I thought about like going to Ghana and just like hanging out for a while and spending time with family. But I know myself, I like wanted to be productive and like learn a new skill while also taking time for myself. And that felt like a good way to combine the two. Cause it was still a high stress environment. Like you can imagine working in a kitchen, being on your feet all day.
I was going to say, what's more stressful, PNC, sort of like banking, or, I mean, Gordon, I know, it's not Gordon Ramsay, is it? I don't know why I said
Cordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay, I'm so weak. We could have edited that out, but that's good enough pun that now I'm going to have to look like an idiot. Yeah. Gordon. Jesus. Anyway, yeah, but on a serious note, it, like a very different type of stress.
Yeah.
But that must have also been quite a stressful environment.
I mean, yeah, it definitely is. I think it's like with any stress though, like when you're in a stressful situation, it feels like the most important thing ever. And like nothing feel like everything else feels like no one knows what you're going through. And when you're like about to burn a steak and your chef is telling you have like 20 seconds to plate and you're like trying to like garnish and like not bump into people and keep your station clean, like nothing feels more important than like getting that dish. But at the end of the day, it's a plate of food, and like I was paying to be there. Like I was there for fun. like you know, like it's not, I mean, but like for people's career when they are in the kitchen, it is life or death, and that I can appreciate. But for like, it did feel very stressful. But at the end of the day, you like serve your plate, your chef tells you it's crap or that it's fine,
edible.
It's not as bad as probably the next person. And then you move on with your day and you go get some pints with your friends and like you have fun. But no, I think finance is the same way, where like you'll be on the brink of closing a deal and like everything's going to shit and you're like freaking out and like everything is on fire, and then it closes and then you go to your closing dinner and then everyone moves on. Like, so I guess it's the sense of like nothing is as big as it seems once you're actually out of it.
Yeah.
Would that be your biggest lesson between culinary and finance? Would you say, or like any big lesson that you had while working at Le Cordon Bleu?
Can I just say I quite like the idea that you've sort of like overcome a million years of evolution of fight or flight response to be like, it's only a radish. It's just a radish.
Like,
it's just 10 basis points of IRR. It's not gonna be the end of the world.
Honestly, though, it's just, I don't know. I think we like live in worlds where like it's very high stress and high pressure, and then if you like zoom out a little bit, you're like, it's actually okay, and it's always gonna be okay
until you 86 radish.
Yeah, probably the most important. This is sound really corny, but I think it's true. It's like how you treat people. Like I think like in those stressful situations where it feels very high pressure, it feels like, you know, like everyone's freaking out. Like I think like to come with respect is the most important thing, and I've tried to keep that consistent. Like in the kitchen, like it's so easy to like get so frustrated and so angry, and like people be in your way and you're like behind and you're like there's fire and there's knives, and it sounds really dumb, but like it's the reality of the situation. And like if you're like, there were people who just like didn't handle stress very well, and you know, bad sides of them show, and I think that can happen in any work environment. I think if you like come with respect and you know treat people well, everything works out fine.
Okay. It's true. Like I think you do learn a lot. I never got when people said like transferable skills. Like I obviously got the concept, but I think it's only after you do a few changes and do some side projects or travel, go, you know, like work in the kitchen, you actually really get the like depth in the statement when they say like transferable skills. It goes well beyond just, you know, learning how to network or whatever. It's like you actually learn a lot about yourself and a lot about how you want to show up or get on in workplaces.
Yeah, agreed.
Very insightful.
Fuck you, buddy. Obviously, you got to the point that you decided you wanted a bit of a break, but you know, you still had that drive and ambition. So you went down the culinary route. But let's talk about sort of what maybe got you slightly, maybe not burnt out, but what got you to the point 5 years in at PNC. Whether or not you want to sort of start at the end or go from the beginning and you'll rise up through PNC, but maybe talk through your journey there. Yeah,
for sure. I started as an intern at PNC. I was in our risk management group. Didn't really know what that meant, but I knew it was an internship in Pittsburgh, and I would get some corporate experience. I would learn more about, you know, finance and working at a bank, and outside of being in a classroom, what the job actually looks like. And I really loved being at PNC, like I've said before. But I knew I didn't necessarily want to do the risk management realm. I wanted to be more client facing. I wanted, you know, to help structure deals. I wanted to do more business development. So then I moved over to their corporate bank, and did that for about 3 to 4 years. And how did you manage that move? Yeah, I talk a lot. So I networked a lot, and I was like the little intern. I think everyone has seen them. That's like running around, like wants to talk to everyone. Is like really eager and
the little
excited.
Intern that could.
Yeah, I was that enthusiastic intern who just like wanted to learn and like meet everyone and shake everyone's hand and go to every coffee meeting. And I think starting at a headquarter too was really like important for me as well, because I had so much exposure to so many different people. And I think that really, set up the trajectory of my time at PNC, because I knew so many people from such a young part of my career, which kind of, helped me moving forward. And then, so I networked a lot, like a lot, until I found something that felt like my personality, which was, like I said, being on the relationship management side. So I joined the development program, which I thought was a great way to, get a mix of the analysis side, but also the relationship management piece. And then graduated the program and made my way through until I found our financial institutions group, which is where we were calling our private capital funds, which in turn, translated to what I'm doing now. So I think networking, I know it's annoying and everyone says it, and like
I love it.
Yeah. And no, it's annoying in the sense that people always say it, but it's fun when you realize the benefits of it. But without it, I don't know what I'd be doing.
You mentioned, starting out as an intern, your career as an intern, you didn't really know what it was, like risk management. Mm-hmm. So I guess, what made you want to go into banking, and then what were the expectations you had, and how did those shift when you had started out?
Yeah, I mean, I was a finance major. I didn't know what I was going to do with that. And I was going to school in Pittsburgh, and it was hospital or bank. And I didn't.
Fair enough.
I wasn't going to go to a hospital to continue my finance career or start my finance career until the bank made sense. And then I knew someone who worked in risk management who encouraged me to start there, and I did. And I was nervous. I think everyone is nervous starting your career, starting a new job. I expected it to be like very like stringent and stuffy and unwelcoming, and then I got the complete opposite. I met so many amazing people. People were incredibly warm. People were invested in me when they did not have to be. I mean, I was an intern there for 10 weeks, and they really took time to get to know me and figure out, what my next move could be post-graduating. I think that's what kept me around. I mean, I didn't dream of being a banker as a little girl, surprisingly, but I think I was looking for a place that felt like I had opportunity and support, and I got that immediately when I started at the bank.
Yeah. And I guess networking yourself into the development program, right? Mm-hmm. I guess what was it like, securing that role after the internship, but also, I guess, was there a guaranteed role after the internship, or was it one of those things where you kind of have to like earn it, figure it out, and like if so, like what was it like, that process of going from intern to development program for you? Yeah,
I think I took a bit of a gamble, if I'm remembering correctly, where it was like you like go through the internship program and they offer you based off of your performance, and I think I had opted out of potentially getting that job because I knew I wanted the corporate banking role, and so I don't think I ever got the risk management offer. Maybe because they were like, you don't even want this, but so I think I knew very clearly what I wanted, and I communicated that to everyone around me. And so, through networking and developing a very quick reputation in a short period of time, I was able to migrate over to the relationship management side.
Just on that, because that's actually a question I get asked quite a lot, which is kind of like, is it better to just get going or wait till the perfect role comes along? Mm-hmm. And I don't think, frankly, especially with inflation and stuff, people can really afford not to get going anymore. But like, it's kind of like a concern people have. They're like, I've got like a corporate banking offer, but I want to be in the investment bank. What do I do? Do I stick it out? And it's a bit of a tough, and it's very situational, I suppose. But do you have any like high level sort of advice or framework for people who are balancing that sort of settling for plan B v going all in on plan A?
Yeah, I think prioritizing your needs and your wants is important. Like if you're an American, you want a visa and you want to be in the UK and you need a role and you need to network, work really hard, prove yourself, and then migrate. If, you're dead set on exactly what you want, you're not willing to settle, you're in a place where you're able to financially, if you have career history where, like, I can take some time until I figure out what I want, then go for it. So, I think what you were saying about it being situational is very important, but I think listing your priorities and then going based off of that is the best way to do it.
And do you have also any tips for sort of rising up the ranks? Because I know, the rough thing in most banks is sort of 3 years analyst, 2-3 years associate, 2-3 years VP, maybe even sometimes longer, but And then, director MD is very much sort of, I suppose, out and out performance based as opposed to time based. But to spend a sort of year like you did before getting promotion is pretty quick. So any tips on sort of how to rise up the ranks? Because you obviously did well to network.
Yeah. I mean, I think be someone that people like to work with. I think that's, again, with my corny tips, but I think it's true. Like, if people like enjoy working with you and they see how hard you're working, and I think, it has to be a mix. You can't just be the personality hire that like everyone, loves and, wants to go to happy hour with. But I think showing people that like you have a genuine interest and that you're willing to translate that into your day-to-day job is what makes all the difference. Because if you're, working hard, but it's not, no one can tell, then, it doesn't really matter.
It's not a personality hire economy anymore, unfortunately.
No, it's not. If it was, I would be doing very well.
To be fair, I can't really, I'm not going to name and shame, but one of my mates always goes, if you can't be competent, just don't be a dick.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah.
It's pretty mean to say to your juniors, but it's like, there's truth in it.
Yeah.
And, obviously you're working here in London now. You spent some time working in Pittsburgh. You mentioned you had been to New York like once a week. How do you find the difference in metropolitans?
I still love London. I'm 2 years in. I still love it. When I came here for Cordon Bleu, I thought I was going to be for 6 months and I was going to go back. And then I remember like 2 months in, like calling my friends and feeling like, be like, I think I really like it here. Like, I think I'm going to stay. And they were like, okay. And I was like, no, really, like, I don't think I'm coming back anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, it's not that different. Like, we're in a different continent and people come from all different parts of the world, but I think it's a really great place for anyone to thrive and do well. And I think there's so many things going on in terms of events, and like there's so many different pockets of communities and cultures, and like I think when you find your people and you like find a job you like, and all those things might sound hard, but once you find that, it becomes, I don't know, it feels very homey. Like I feel very comfortable here. I don't plan on leaving anytime soon, as long as I keep my visa universe.
There you go.
You can't afford to get fired.
Yeah.
How do you find yourself highlighting work and also managing your workload as well, right? Because to move up, you got to be doing new stuff to show that you have the capabilities for this.
Yeah.
How are you managing all these things?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I think the beginning it was a natural progression because you're in a development program, so there's like a guideline. After a year and a half of underwriting, you do a year and a half of sales. After that, you get promoted to your next role. But I did do a lot of projects outside of my day-to-day work, which I think is what got me recognized outside of, my close space of people that I was working with every day.
What sort of projects?
Yeah, like PNC was doing a SPAC at one point when, SPACs were hot and cool.
Classic.
Shout out Shamath.
Yeah, so I was tapped on the shoulder to participate in that group. I was also really active in our employee business resources groups, doing a lot of other community work, whether it be with, African American groups or women's group. And so that got me recognized outside of, the people that impact the business that I'm working on directly. And I think I would raise my hands for, different things. Like I remember if it was like prospecting initiatives, I, wanted to, help out and think of new ideas. And I think when you're so early in your career, people are like, find ways to add value, make an impact. Like you may have an idea that the CEO never thought of, but it's like, no, I don't know how to do my day job yet. So let me, get my feet under me before I start doing those things. But I think, once you do figure out different pockets of things that you just might be innately good at, whether it's helping organizing a prospecting event or whether it's community development work, things that you may not be able to, you need the critical analysis or, credit understanding or what have you in order to be really good at, but it's part of your personality and it gets you seen by other people. I think that's a great way of, networking and getting to know people and helps you to move up.
You mentioned something there, adding value. That is one thing I did not really understand until my time in London. I mean, you talk about transferable skills, you really believe in that, but adding value is just, it seems like such an empty word when you start out your career, like an empty phrase. I guess how was that process of understanding what value was to add, or was it always just something so clear to you?
No, I think sometimes I still struggle, and I'm like, I do see it because sometimes you're like, some tasks just feel really mundane and annoying. You don't feel like doing it, and then but it's helpful. Someone has to do it. You're adding value. So I think, there's levels to it. Like, you might be like organizing a share drive and be like, this really sucks and I hate this, but like it's going to save your MD X amount of time every time they're looking for files and documents, and then everyone's moving more efficiently and able to give feedback, and able to spend more time with you and mentor. Like, I think there's like a ripple effect to that. But like, yeah, if you're able to like walk into a job and structure a deal and get 10 clients to the door, yeah, you're adding a lot of value, but like the average person isn't like that. So like finding those like little pockets where it's like, hey, I can take that off your table or your to-do list. Like, I can do this. Or like even just being more efficient in the things that you are being tasked with, I think is adding value. Like, sometimes, things might take a while, but if you're able to, rip through it, it helps out.
And I feel like you, to your point though, you kind of know what they are when you're junior.
Do you?
I think so.
I didn't.
I don't know.
I didn't.
Well, you kind of knew because they're the ones no one wanted to do, like you say. Mm-hmm. They're like, we need like 5 people to do this, and you get like 1 volunteer.
But it's hard
and
to really...
you're like, this is a boring thing that's going to take 4 hours, and then you're like, well, that's kind of why I'm here.
But it's hard to relate that to value because, like you say, you don't see it for the value that it has. You just see, it's just some bullcrap task that they want us to do. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to be doing the real stuff that as top line value, which is most people would relate to that, right? But how's the sausage made, right? And it's those mundane tasks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sort of. But also, I think I always thought of it more in terms of adding value as a team player.
Wow,
like
what a guy!
Wow, yes.
But wait, I want to hear about this.
But no, it's like I there's definitely some tasks I've done that I did not get anything from. Like, there was no personal development there really.
Yeah.
But it's more like if you want to rise up the ranks as quickly as possible, then like, freeing up your star player to go out and win a deal rather than do grunt work that they're too senior to be doing, that is you adding value to the collective.
I would have thought with you, every trade-off had an upside, but
there are no optimizations, only trade-offs. No? Is that not what
Maybe.
You were referencing? No?
Could be. Who knows?
Don't ask me.
It's actually soup to nuts.
What you're saying was soup to nuts. No, but I don't know. That's what I always thought of that, like adding value. We can all,
I think that's valid.
debug or go through a Excel sheet and just.
No, it is. That's exactly what it is. But I think is it always intuitive to relate those tasks to that phrase? Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Because I was always happy to do stuff, right? But
I see your point. Associating, so it's not just a mindless task anymore. It's I'm doing this as part of a larger team. Yeah, I think that probably just comes with maturity, which comes with experience. But I'm a bit like you. Sometimes you're like, oh, this is bollocks, and you're like, actually, I'd just be a bit more humble. Like, I'm 6 months into my career. It's kind of the only, like, to your point, this is really all I'm good for at this point.
Yeah, it's like checking your ego at the door. It's like you're not gonna be the number 1 person on the team day one.
Speaking of number 1 person on the team, what sports did you play coming up?
What sports did I play, or what sports was I good at?
You mentioned that you were an athlete coming up.
Yeah.
Right? Was it a team thing, or was it you're number 1 in the game, or was it like, were you team captain? I don't know.
Yeah. So I ran track in university. Which is funny because it's both, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's you on the line, but you're still scoring points for your team. I was on a relay.
Numbers on the board.
Which leg?
I was the 3rd leg of the 4x400. Okay, don't make a face. don't make a face.
No.
we made eye contact.
of all numbers, you could have.
Yeah.
It's just
very
childish.
What?
Very childish. Well,
what's wrong with the number 3?
Yeah, you're just in the 3rd leg. It's fine.
Stop it. Get some help.
So did you learn anything from being an athlete? Because we've had a few on before who say that, like, they learn a lot about themselves. They learn about discipline. They learn how to work in a team. What lessons did running track sort of give you that helped you in your career?
Yeah, I think all of those things are extremely true. But I think also to, like, have a short memory, my coach would always say that, is like, you could prepare your whole life, which I guess I kind of did for every race, but Yeah, it's not always going to go to plan. It could be so many different factors that contribute to not having the perfect race, but you got to move on. And I think on average, I'd run 2 to 3 events every meet. So whether it be like a 400 meter hurdles and then whatever, I'd run.
How frequent would those meets be?
Every weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were on the road every weekend, traveling, competing, and then we'd come back, go to class. But it was, it's a lot. I mean, everyone knows how athletes work. But you have to have a short memory. You have to move on, because I could have the worst meet of my life. I have to come back on Monday and practice like I'm getting ready for the most important meet of my life. So I think that translates, to every part of my life. It's, you're going to take some L's and you got to move on.
So I think maybe to like round off, it'd be good to touch on obviously like your path as a Black woman through finance. Like how have you found that? Any advice for the next generation? Any things you would change?
Yeah, more of us. No, I mean, there's not enough of us in the room. I think everyone knows that.
But we are 50% of this room. So that's good.
You're also a Black woman.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Proud of you, buddy.
No, you're right. I think all Black people are underrepresented in finance and probably every industry, but that's a different story. But I think now particularly where like you see a lot of firms are rolling back a lot of their diversity initiatives. It's more important than ever for, us to support our Black finance professionals in any capacity we can. I know for me, the reason I am where I am today, and I give so much credit to my mentors and people who like really saw how excited and eager I was to progress in my career and really hone on my skills and help me to figure out, what the trajectory of my career could look like. And those people who I met as an intern are still very much invested in my career today. And I think, meeting people always say this, and I can't believe I'm becoming as cliche as I feared, but like those people who don't talk about you in the room are the most important people. And I hope to be that for so many other, Black young women and
the people who talk about you when you're not in the room.
In the best way possible, where you're just like, and I think, I give you a lot of credit too. When I first moved to London, when I knew I wanted to stay here and I want to work in finance, like Ken was such an advocate for me in so many different capacities. And like when I was, busy like applying to jobs and trying to do interviews, like you were talking about me in the room and you were like, hey, I talked to this person about you. They'd be interested. Here's their LinkedIn, here's their email. And I think that's what gets people to their next role. And I didn't find my job directly through you, but I think I came into my interview with so much confidence and like so much, eagerness, because I knew that like I had so many conversations with so many people in London about my career, and I give Ken a lot of credit for that. And a lot of the events that I went to too, I met so many people that knew me for such a short period of time, but like saw how bad I wanted it, like really connected with me, and they're in my life in some capacity to this day. So I think it can come in so many different forms. It doesn't have to be like lifelong mentors who know everything about you. It could be people that you've met along your journey who want to support you. And I think finding those people is what gets you to have a hopefully very successful career.
So talk about people when they're not in the room
in the best way possible.
Can we maybe put your LinkedIn in like the show notes if like other Black women want to reach out?
Yeah, I would love that.
Do you have any tips or advice for anyone trying to get into your type of career?
Yeah, I think just being curious. I think educating yourself in any way. That could be going to events, it could be reading, it could be talking to people, it could be any form of curiosity. I think goes a really, really long way. And you kind of don't know what you want to do until you're asking the questions or you're meeting people, and you might have an idea of a role, you might have an idea of a company's culture, you might have an idea of what type of professional career you want to have, but until you're really in it, you really don't have a strong understanding. So get as much information, collect as much data as you can, and kind of make decisions from there. And things are always changing and it may not be perfect from the beginning, but if you're constantly staying curious, and it can evolve for the better.
Amazing. Curiosity
didn't kill the cat. Stay curious.
Cool. That was a strong ending.
Surprisingly cold. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, we'll put your LinkedIn in like the show notes. Also, Please like and subscribe. We're on Spotify, YouTube, we're on Apple Podcasts going forward, and we're also now on TikTok. So if you want to watch clips from the podcast, that's where to find us. Thanks.